in the consumer market. The crucial thing for us was to make sure that first the industry, but more importantly in the end the consumer, had every means possible to ensure we could detect the stimulant from the genuine article.
With their scientists busy working away, De Beers were confident they had time in hand to prepare for any future threats. But unknown to De Beers, a challenge already existed, hidden away behind the Iron Curtain. With the breakup of the Soviet Union, Russian scientists were keen to explore the new ideals of capitalism. In the early 90s, on the outskirts of Moscow, diamond scientist Dr. Boris Figelsson set up a lab in rooms rented from the Institute of the Blind.
I had hopes. I even had dreams about it. That was at the time when things started to happen.
His original idea was to copy General Electric's theory of high pressure and high temperature. But instead of tiny grains, he planned to grow gem-sized diamonds. But he just didn't have the right gear. With little money, he had to use whatever equipment came to hand. His first attempts were wrought with danger.
We had to select the right materials and the right parts for the press, because if it was set up wrongly, then it was quite possible that there would be an explosion. Everything would come flying out at high pressure.
In the end, in contrast to the giant machines used by General Electric, Figelsson cobbled together a diamond press not much bigger than a washing machine. At its heart was a small spherical growth chamber which used a unique method to create the required high pressure. Pumping oil around the sphere created a moderate hydraulic pressure. This was then amplified through specially shaped steel anvils to create a massive 58,000 atmospheres down at the central core. But at first, he still wasn't getting the goods.
When we thought we understood everything was clear. Then something emerged, something no one predicted, and everything fell through.
Figelsson decided to try an old crystal-growing trick and give his diamond a head start. Within the growth core, he added a tiny piece of low-quality grit diamond. He hoped this would act as a seed on which the growing diamond could form. Above it was a metal solvent and a layer of graphite. He then applied an electric current to heat the top of the chamber. This dissolved the graphite into the metal solvent, releasing the carbon atoms. The carbon atoms migrated through the molten solvent to the cooler end of the capsule, where they crystallized onto the diamond seed, making it grow.
We managed to get sometimes quite good crystals, but more often the results were not good.
Figelsson's diamonds had telltale signs which would betray their man-made origins. They often contained small fragments of metal.
It was clear to us that we had to refine the chemistry and stabilize the heating process as much as possible.
Figelsson eventually discovered that by controlling the critical temperatures within the growth core in a very precise manner, he could dramatically improve the quality of his diamonds. His diamond growing technique was still not consistent, but Figelsson had realized his dream. But there was something else about his diamonds, something that made them potentially of extraordinary value. His diamonds weren't crystal clear, they were colored.
When we got our first good crystal, we were naturally absolutely overwhelmed.
Colored diamonds are found in nature, but they're extremely rare. Among their number are the great legends of the diamond world, like the Hope Diamond, the Dresden Green, the Tiffany Yellow, and the recently unveiled Blue Empress. Fancy colored diamonds are highly prized, and they're hideously expensive. Only the finest jewelers stock natural colored diamonds. Jeremy Morris has been in the family business for 20 years.
Wealthy people are the market for vivid and fancy intense colored diamonds. It's not for the average person. The prices are prohibitive, unfortunately. This stone here is a little freak of nature. It's a 6-carat, deep brownish orangey yellow, but that would be around $300,000. 1 carat 25, vivid orangey yellow, dazzlingly beautiful, £38,000. We have here a 25-carat light pink, $1.5 million, ordinary offer.
The lucrative trade in fancy colored diamonds was a market the Russian diamond makers were keen to exploit.
It's possible to make duplicate Hope diamonds or red diamonds or yellow diamonds or green diamonds, all different sorts of colors of diamonds, just by controlling the right impurity, the slight change in the chemical mix that goes into making these diamonds.
But if the diamond makers were going to stand any chance of selling their rocks, first they had to convince the diamond dealers of the West. Every year, Las Vegas hosts one of the world's largest gem fairs, where thousands of dealers sell their wares to jewelers from around the world. In 1999, colored synthetic diamonds coming out of Russia were showcased here for the first time.
Just today we had here at the show a large selection of synthetic diamonds presented and showed to us in a variety of fancy colors. You're talking about blue stones that look like $100,000 per carat stones. Very nice stones.
Lured by the dream of fabulous wealth, diamond labs had sprung up all over Russia. As a middleman for synthetic diamonds, Alex Gryzenko had been drawn to Vegas.
For the last several years, we've been looking at what the potential market could actually be. Today, the market is truly in its infant stage. And as demand grows, and demand has to grow, this market has to be created. And as demand grows, so will supply, inevitably. It will be a big market.
But back in 1999, the prospect of a world flooded by synthetic Russian diamonds actually seemed remote. Their labs lacked the funds and the necessary production skills.
The Russians certainly have problems today. We all understand that. Capital is scarce, infrastructure is in some places complicated. Capital investments into Russia today are difficult.
But a chance meeting was about to change all that. Like something out of a James Bond movie, a Russian scientist made a cautious approach to a former US Army general. It was to be a fateful encounter.
I was in Moscow on another project developing an electronic security device, and one of the scientists on the project asked me whether or not I was interested in diamonds. And I said, well, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm interested in most anything. Frankly, I thought he was going to ask me to invest in some diamond mining project. But instead, they took me to a facility outside of Moscow, and they showed me a machine that they claimed would make diamonds.
General Carter Clark was intrigued. But even though he decided to fork out $170,000 for 3 units, he was quite skeptical that the Russian machines could make anything at all.
The machines they had in Russia were doing experimental work, and there's a big gap between a laboratory type of operations and a commercial production. We really had to bring good old Yankee ingenuity into being in order to make this a viable business.
So he brought the whole operation back to his native Florida. There, he set up shop as the Gemesis Corporation. His ultimate plan, to mass-produce synthetic diamonds. But straight away, it was clear the Russian machines just weren't doing the business.
They were able to get a crystal once in a while, but not all the time. They couldn't get the size we wanted. They couldn't get the color we wanted. Couldn't get the consistency we wanted. Couldn't get the yields we wanted. The whole idea of the growth process had to be rethought.
So General Clark enlisted the help of scientists from the University of Florida. Dr. Rob Chaduka identified the problem. Too much human intervention.
When the machines initially came over, one of the large problems were they were manually operated. There was a person sitting in front of that machine 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, while that machine was running, controlling the principal properties for that machine to operate, the pressure and the temperature. We wanted to remove the human error associated with running and operating this machine so we could produce a product on a consistent basis. That was, we had the computer control it.
The university scientists attempted to automate the growth process entirely. No one had tried this before, but eventually they managed to convert the machines. Using their updated design, Clark's technicians started building their own presses, ultimately creating the world's first gem diamond production line. Each of his 23 machines could then be prepared and loaded in minutes. Now it was a simple case of pressing start and waiting for the machine to do I'm
gonna do this now.
Oh my God.
Power equivalent to a hairdryer running at the same time.
After each machine finished its run, the growth cores were extracted. They were then cracked open to reveal a small lump of metal which contained the diamond. These were then each washed in acid baths to dissolve away the metal, revealing the newly formed rough diamond. Clark was finally on his way to achieving his goal. He was now producing fancy yellow diamonds far superior in size and quality to anything ever created in the Russian labs.
Initially, we were growing stones that were less than 2 carats, roughly about 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 carats. Now we're growing 3 to 3.5 carats. And that'll cut and polish to a stone that's almost 2 carats, depending on the cut that you want. We're also getting a better color. Before we used to get a washed out yellow. Now we get a nice vivid or intense yellow.
Until now, it had only been the uber-rich who could afford natural colored diamonds. Clark dreamt of taking his colored diamonds out onto the high street.
These diamonds from nature are very expensive. A 1 carat vivid yellow diamond would go somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. Our comparable stone would go somewhere around $4,000.
Admittedly not for everyone's pocket, but high-quality synthetic stones selling for 1/4 of the price of naturals sent ripples across the diamond pond. For the first time, there was a real